Hi everyone, welcome back to Serve the Build, where usually Nemeth actually flew back to India a few days ago to visit family. So it's just me in Maryland right now. But I just want to take this time to reflect on what I'm learning within the startup, and I wanted to focus on a particular topic, um, evidence over feelings, and kind of like what I've learned so far around taking signal, um, in other words, signs that this is a good idea, there is a real demand, versus noise, something that might lead to something called overfitting, where you think that there's demand, or you think that your prediction is correct, however, it's incorrect. Um, and I want to put it into perspective of kind of like where we are today within the startup, and then also some previous examples that I've experienced so far, where I got the noise confused with signal. So, firstly, there are a few points that come to my mind when I think about signal versus noise when it comes to startups. Firstly, I think one thing that when I reflect back about 2 months ago, that would have allowed me to discern the difference between these two would be having a very narrow focus on your ideal customer. And the reason why this is important is because when you have a too wide of a focus, um, with who you're selling to, you will get mixed data points. So you might get a good data point from one type of person, and then you might get a good data point from another type of person. And you might take that as the same data point, but they're actually very different. In our case, when we initially onboarded two of our first paying customers, this past summer, about 2 months ago, um, they both were selling within the healthcare field. However, they both were two very different companies at two very different stages. And that led us to start building software very quickly, because we thought, okay, we have two paying customers, let's start building software. Um, and honestly, there was a little bit of noise to that equation, because we didn't have a truly focused ideal customer. So, firstly, being able to identify the very narrow person you're trying to sell to, um, will allow you to test a bit faster. Secondly, the thing that once you have that narrow focus and you have additional data points, I think it's important to look at the market demand. And what do I mean by market demand? Um, I specifically mean understanding, firstly, what the demand for this product is now and what it might look like in the future, and how difficult will it be for people to replicate, what you're able to build now and then into the future. So for us, we were building AI sales development representatives. Basically, where you were able to upload a list of prospects, or we would find prospects for you, and then we would generate messages and send those messages using AI. What we found, and this kind of led back to that ideal customer profile, is that the, the, the need was very different from a startup compared to a mid-sized to a large enterprise company within healthcare. we, we still have demand for startups. However, the question arises, does that scale to mid-size and then large enterprise customers, specifically for healthcare, if we're to really focus on this? The answer that we've really come up with, at least today, and things evolve every day, is that no, it doesn't scale. We'd be able to grow the business. We'd be able to have happy customers. We'd be serving them well. But at the end of the day, there wouldn't be a massive differentiating factor. And over time, our moat would really become a zero-sum game. In other words, other people would be able to enter the market very easily, and it would we didn't see with AI SDR where the differentiating factor is. I'm curious, like, what investors are thinking right now when they're funding these AI SDR companies or AI digital employee companies, and kind of what they're getting pitched behind the scenes. But at least for the AI sales rep, it's just really hard to justify on some different levels unless you're a first mover and you really are able to capture a significant portion of a particular ideal customer and you're really growing at a rapid pace. And we weren't, I mean, we were in that conversation, however, we weren't kind of first to the gun of creating ourselves as the personas, the all in one, AI, getting the context, researching, sending messages. Um, and then lastly, competition. Um, so just to recap, firstly, ideal customer profile is their market demand. And then what's your competition? And this kind of leads off market demand. There was a lot of competition within AI SDRs, and it just felt like a saturated market. I'm not saying we're completely moved away yet. However, we're testing different things right now because unless you're a first mover within this market, I think, because if you're a first mover, and you can really do a good job at this, you can then evolve into other things. Um, However, if you're not a first mover and people are already doing this and everyone's already got the same 10 messages from other companies, I think it just becomes a lot more difficult from my experience. It's doing a lot of outbound, talking to a lot of people who've been outreached by these other companies. Um, so then competition, like I said, how how easy is this for other people to get into the space? Um, I'm really starting to see recently that I think to build really great companies, well, firstly, I want to do things manually first, where there's no software, because I think it's really easy to build software. It's not hard to do it at all. It's easy to get someone to pay $100 and then start building software. I think that actually might be wasting time, in the sense of um, not actually understanding if you're solving a true pain point for a particular type of group in a way that is in a way that can scale. I guess would be the best way to put it. Um, but yeah, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here. So paying customers, market demand, competition. And then lastly but not least, with paying customers, you might have paying customers. This is the most interesting learning that has come to me. It's more so like you can have paying customers, but it actually might not really mean anything. Um, and I might prove myself wrong over time with this. Um, but I mean, you see it all the time where businesses will have paying customers, they'll grow their business, but then they'll plateau and they won't be able to get over X amount of revenue because there just was no launch pad that they were able to build to get to that, you know, 30, 40, $50 million of ARR to 100 million. And we have paying customers right now. We have more people who want to pay for our service. And we are at this crossroads where we really have to identify those other core assumptions that I talked about with what's signal, what's noise, how's this going to become a big opportunity where we can serve a lot of people in the future, but also right now. So yeah, those are all different thoughts that run through my mind about signal and noise and getting to the product market fit or getting to become a large business. Maybe it's naive for me to even think about how do I build a large business. You might be saying, why don't you just focus on serving, your customers and make them happy, and that will ultimately lead to something. And it's a fair point. Um, However, you have to keep in mind how not only the short run but the long run, because now we have experienced what it's like to have paying customers, to have people asking for things, to be building alongside them, to make them happy, to make them wanting to come back. Like, we've experienced this, and it's kind of like really the first time we've experienced it in a way where it was very back and forth with us and the customers. um, but yeah, it can definitely be deceiving. um, So yeah, I guess to end this dialogue off, if I were to give advice or the truth that I know to me would be, and what we're taking forward in this next stretch is be narrow, do things manually, see if people will pay after maybe a little trial period, keep doing things manually until you can't, and then see if there's a unique insight that we might have that other people might not, that we're able to apply maybe within software to then allow us to scale to those same type of people who face that same type of problem, and then we move quickly. And I think that's the approach that we're having right now. It might change because when you're building a startup, pivots happen, and a lot of founders get stuck up on the same idea when they know things aren't going right. And even when they might justify it because they have paying customers, but at the end of the day, a lot of the times that doesn't justify for them to continue on an idea because they're so stuck up with it. It's happened to us. Not saying that we're leaving healthcare. More so, I'm saying we want to be objective with the signal that we're getting in a very systematic way. But yeah, I hope this gives insight to people who are building right now. And I'm always curious to hear what people who are further along the startup path might have. Maybe I'm thinking about things in a incorrect way, but I think this is the correct way to think about things based off my experience. But I think as startups startups evolve, so do the human perception of what's right and wrong. So yeah, this was a fun dialogue. I please like, subscribe. Let's get this to 100 subscribers, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen. So thanks so much.